One more thing. Klay Thompson, should he start every game? Should he close every game? You've got feelings. And is Dereck Lively the third best player on the Mavs? We'll talk about all that and more right now.
I'm here because I have to be.
Dallas is going to get a seat at the table.
That's it. It's me versus the machine. Don't let his lightness take away from his quickness.
You can rest later. You're young.
And then recover here.
Wait. One more thing.
Yeah, you're still locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more as playoffs wind down. The sport stops sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right, there's something for everyone, every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I'm joined again by Tim Cato of The Athletic, who did an incredible fan survey. Asked a bunch of fans, asked a lot of you questions about the Dallas Mavericks, and we got answers. We talked about a lot of them yesterday, how the Mavs basically saved their franchise. A lot about Mark Cuban at the end of that one, which is a little interesting. So go back and listen to that one if you didn't listen to that. Tim Cato, what you got for me today?
Man, it was great to talk yesterday on Thursday, Nick, but it's 2 days in a row. What a treat. You know, what a delight.
Woke up today again.
To have Nick in my life 2 days in a row.
Wearing the same shirts, you know. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, definitely not recording these back to back.
Peek behind the curtain. The man pulling all the levers.
It happens.
We'll talk about who the Mavs' third best player is. One of the most interesting questions in the whole survey that I love every year is who can play in a playoff game, or this year it was who can play in a finals game. We'll talk about that. But I want to start here, Tim. Couple questions about Klay Thompson. The big addition to the Dallas Mavericks this offseason has been Klay Thompson. One of the first ones is, should Klay start every game? The fans answered this one. 53.6% said yes. 46% said no. The fan base is almost split 50-50 on should Klay start every game. Why?
Or this one is actually, will the coaching staff start him every game?
Oh, will they say, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so I asked two questions. We'll talk about the other one. But one was more, what do you feel as a fan? Like is this the guy that should be, closing every competitive game? Should he be in there? But I also wanted to ask from kind of the other perspective. What's your impression as a fan that the coaching staff is going to do for Klay? Do you believe that he's going to be out there every time that he's healthy in the starting lineup? Do you believe that at some point, maybe the coaching staff's going to bring him off the bench? And I thought it was a little closer than I thought. I personally, and this is not really sourced, and I don't think there's any way to know how the season's going to go and whether at some point it is going to make, he's going to start game one. But, a lot of whether he stays in there is going to depend on how the season goes. And maybe that's where the, rather close answer, this was probably the one that was most surprising to me, it comes from just the idea that nobody knows how the season is going to go. And so nobody knows how the coaching staff is going to, feel about this, whether they're going to have to make a starting lineup move. But I just found that all really interesting, that fans really don't have a good sense of what Jason Kidd and his coaching staff is going to do with lineups, that, a lot of them do expect some experimentation to happen and to happen with Klay Thompson, as this season goes along. Or at least they're not 100% confident that, they can envision scenarios where that experimentation happens. I found that really interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. And you're right. The question is, do you believe the coaching staff will start Klay Thompson in every game he's available? And so it opens it up to, will there be experimentation? Will Klay Thompson be able to start and be the best option to start there? I go back to one of the lessons that the Mavs needed to learn from the finals run is they work the best when they have two dirty work wings. And Klay just does not really fit that. He kind of used to, right? He used to be all defense. He could do those things, set screens, do the guard the best player on the other team kind of guy. And he's not that guy necessarily anymore. And so then you get to that next question where it's, or one of the other questions, which is how confident are you that the offensive upgrade of Klay Thompson's addition will make up for the defensive downgrade of Derrick Jones Jr.'s departure? And that is sort of the question that has to be answered if you think Klay is going to start every game or is not going to start every game. And I was very interested to see that the majority of Mavs fans believe that Klay will make up for the defensive downgrade of Derrick Jones Jr. But I guess I would be more curious to see how they feel, what's their confidence level in Klay's defense, because that's where we are right now, and that's the big question that needs to be answered.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you feel like the offensive upgrade is going to make up for the defensive downgrade, then what does it matter?
Does it matter?
What level of Klay's defense? I mean, I think baked into that is kind of a if you're more optimistic about it, then you're more optimistic that Klay will be passable defense. You're right. It's weird. Like if you're parsing this question literally, you're right. It doesn't have anything to do with Klay's defense. I do think that, most people, basically was like, hey, is it good that Klay is going to play most of the minutes that Dereck Jones played last season? I think that's probably how it was interpreted. A lot of people, I had this one with a short answer, optional short answer to, just kind of expand on the thoughts, because I knew this one and its wording was a bit more ambiguous. It wasn't just saying, 1 to 5 confidence in this person and this thing. I knew it was a little bit more ambiguous. The wording was a little bit different, as we just talked about. And one thing that was pointed out a lot, one thing that was said in the short answer a lot, is that some people just rejected the entire framing of the question, that it should have been Najee and Klay for Hardaway and Jones. And that's totally valid. This is what makes it hard to actually come up with these questions sometimes, is like, I know that this Klay and Dereck Jones thing is, one of the most interesting, intriguing things about the offseason. I know that is like something that I was trying to get a pulse on, but how exactly do you boil it down to a point where it's not just everybody short answering, and there's no way to get data on short answers, so
the word cloud was pretty good.
Yeah, the word cloud was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I don't think I'd ever done those before, so I enjoyed this question. It probably is the one that is most flawed in terms of what is it actually showing, how are people actually voting on it. Still, cautious optimism was, I would say, the results. Most people voted 4s. I think cautious optimism is probably the right place to be. That's probably where I am going into next season for this team, about what that will represent.
On Klay and Dereck Jones Jr. and that whole thing, I believe that Klay Thompson and Najee Marshall for Dereck Jones Jr. and Tim Hardaway Jr. is absolutely an upgrade. The problem is you can only play one of those guys in the starting lineup. So that question being split still, will the coaching staff start Klay Thompson every game? You can only start one of them, right? Unless you sit PJ or I don't know, whoever else is injured or whatever. But that I just found interesting overall, is that.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of stand by me choosing that duality. Like I think again, the short answer, people are saying it should have been like a, viewed as a combo. I get where you're coming from, but ultimately this is about a 30-minute chunk going from, in all likelihood, mostly Jones to, in all likelihood, mostly Klay. I think that's what it ultimately comes down to. And, as you said, there are diminishing returns of how much you can have as many good defenders on your bench as you want. They're coming off the bench. They're not going to play as much. There is going to be fewer minutes assigned to defensive specialists, to above average defenders in this rotation next season, in all likelihood, than there was this past season. And I think that will make an impact. It's just a matter of which impact is bigger.
So we go through that cautious optimism. And then the question that you asked about Klay that was actually what is your opinion, right? Is how many games do you believe Klay Thompson should be in the closing lineup? And the majority, 47.6, said 60 to 81. And then
in the context on this one real quick, I basically made a hypothetical scenario where it's pretend Klay is healthy for 82 games and every game is close down the stretch. That will not happen, but I feel like that's a better way to kind of portray quick and dirty. How often should he be in the starting lineup? So most people, as you just said, very few people said he should be in there for all 82. Again, not going to happen, but for the thought exercise of trying to figure out what people are thinking, how often he should be closing. Most people said not out all the time, but a lot of the time. 62 to 81. That's still a lot. That's still, a majority of games.
Yeah. Well, if you combine the all 82, 60 to 81 and all 82, I mean, that's a huge chunk of people. And so there was not and it was only 5, just under 5% or whatever, were 40 or less. So it's not like there are a bunch of Mavs fans that do believe that, don't believe in Klay Thompson being a closer at all. The majority of them do and think that he should. And so it is interesting.
And that comes back to the thing, Najee can't close a game if Klay's the guy who's in there closing a game.
You get one. You get one if you're going to play Lively, PJ, Luka, and Kyrie. Which I
do think PJ will sit sometimes. I think that is a way to kind of massage the closing lineups. I think that PJ is awesome and he's going to be a locked in starter. But and this is not source. This is not coming from the coaching staff. But I just think it makes sense that he's going to close a majority of games. But same as Klay Thompson probably should not close every game. I think it's okay if PJ is not an every game closer. We'll see. Maybe he becomes a 40% shooter and, is just, a complete lock for the closing lineups. But I think that is a reasonable thing to look at this roster, to look at this team, and to think next season that he does not have to be that out there. PJ Washington does not have to be out there every single time.
Interesting. Let us know in the comment section on YouTube. Do you believe that Klay will start every single game? I'm curious what you guys think about that. Coming up, Dereck Lively, the third best player on the Mavs, and who can play in a finals game? Talk about that with Tim coming up.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds you can use to get in on the action. Get in while the getting is good with the Olympics. You can do all kinds of stuff with the Olympics. They still have a whole bunch of things that you can do for the Olympics. Go check out soccer. WNBA will be starting up again. They've got a Caitlin Clark and an Angel Reese tab. What's the Angel Reese one? To lead the league in rebounds per game, minus 115. To record a double-double in each of the 16 remaining Chicago Sky games. So a double-double in every single remaining game, plus 5,500. That's some odds right there. All kinds of fun WNBA stuff. They got NBA futures. We talked about the wins, the over-unders a little bit earlier this week. FanDuel.com has all kinds of stuff like that with a boost and bonus daily. Go check it out. It's FanDuel.com.
Touche.
Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, listening every day, even on a bonus day like today. Appreciate you guys for listening to the show. We got Tim Cato from The Athletic. We're talking about his fan survey, the great exercise he does every year where you hear from Mavs fans all over the place, hearing what they think about this team. Talked about Klay Thompson. One of the more interesting questions to me was this one. Which of the following non-Luka Doncic, non-Kyrie Irving players are you confident can play 20-plus effective minutes in an NBA Finals game? This is different than how you've phrased this question in the past. First of all, let's talk about why you changed it.
Yeah, I think I want to say it was 3 years in a row that I had done which players on the roster are you confident can give Dallas 25-plus minutes in a competitive playoff game? So some room for interpretation there. But things change when you go to the finals. And we saw that there's players who were good in the first and second round. And then as the conference finals and finals came, that was just a situation that, the stage was too big. The asks were too much. And these players were not able to be as effective. And so as Dallas's expectations rise, so do the expectations I kind of put into this survey. And, out of all the questions I put in every year, this is my favorite as well. It really makes you think. And the fact that there's only 3 people who received overwhelming support, in and around 90%, I think Lively was like 99%.
97.
I thought it was interesting and as confident as everybody is, a lot of cautious optimism, or maybe even slightly more optimism, throughout this survey. Then you get down to the very end, you get down to this question. And there's only 3 more players outside of Luka and Kyrie that people are absolutely sure can play in an NBA Finals game. And it is not a bad thing. And there are certainly players on the roster who can go prove that. But I just found that very interesting. And it's just to me, every year, really grappling with this question is just a small dose of reality where it's hard. It's hard to be sure, with a team that is constantly changing and with, these role players and, even adjusting the minutes down to 20 minutes. Again, there's only 5 players, just like the finals about a year, just a few months ago against Boston. There was really maybe in those finals, there's only 4 players who were trusted. So at least Dallas has gone up 1. But it is something that I just find really, really interesting every time we do this. And, it's a reality check.
To give context, in the actual finals, Luka, Kyrie, PJ played 35 minutes. Derrick Jones Jr. played 29 minutes. Lively played 22. Gafford played 20. Then Josh Green played 18. Maxi at 17. Then the drop off to Tim Hardaway at like 13. And so that's where we were actually with this. But I think where the confidence comes from is the difference between last year's survey and this past year's survey. So the results to this survey, Lively got 97, PJ Washington 89, Klay Thompson about 89, Gafford and Najee about 53, 55, Then you drop off to Dinwiddie at like 30%. And this is percent of fans that believe you could play 20 plus minutes in a finals game, effective minutes in a finals game too. But you go back to the playoff.
Anybody can play 25 plus minutes.
That's true. Yeah,
you and I could play 25 plus minutes.
I'll be out there.
Qualifier is pretty important.
I don't know if I'll be participating in all the possessions, but I'll be out there. I'll be running back and forth. But the survey from the year before, who could play 25 minutes in a playoff game, which is a lower tier, 93.7% went with Grant Williams. That was the number one answer after last season, which is wild. Then number 2 at 75%, Josh Green, 65% Maxi, 51% Tim Hardaway Jr. And the interesting one is that Lively was at 6%, and now he's at 97% in a finals game, which is wild. The confidence in him, it swung. Shout out to those of you who believed in Lively, the 6% out there, however many people that was. But I think that just the difference in the top players from last year to this year, it's insane.
Yeah. And in fair to Grant Williams, like last year, the question was a postseason game, and we had seen him play a lot of effective minutes in the postseason. Not necessarily the finals where he fell out of the Boston rotation a bit, but yeah, to your point, and this is a semi transition to something we're going to talk about, but it was just the thing that so struck me. I go in and I take the Google form and I, duplicate it and then update a bunch of the questions because a lot of them are repeats. I'm trying to track the trend of how things are going year over year over year. That's one of the most fascinating things about this exercise. And to go through with who will be the Mavericks' third best player and to erase Tim Hardaway Jr., Grant Williams, and Josh Green as the 3 options, and instead to put in Klay Thompson, PJ Washington, and Dereck Lively, obviously. That was something that struck me as, okay, yeah, things have changed in Dallas on this roster around here. They have changed quite a bit.
The answer to that question, who's going to be the third best player? 77% said Dereck Lively. Huge, great number. 18% said Klay, and then PJ Washington, something single-digit percentage. Your response to that answer was literally just Lively's earned this. How has he earned it?
I mean, he is, nobody ever does this as a rookie center. Like what he did was historic, and for him to hold up, to prove, to adjust, to, often be, Nick, come on. Like we were saying in November that Dereck Lively, maybe we weren't saying that he was the third best player, but we were saying he was the third most important. A lot of us were saying that, especially by December, everybody felt like that. And so, I think that this is something he has earned. He has absolutely earned it with his play, with his youth, with the idea that, we know that he's going to be working, he's going to be improving, and, just the idea of where his development could go. This is something that, is just a testament to who he is as a player. And it's the reason also, one of the answers we didn't bring up was, who is your favorite non-Luka player on the roster right now?
I had this one.
The overwhelming favorite also, Dereck Lively.
64%.
Like even over Kyrie. Like some of these I couch with like like the playoff minutes one, I couch with non-Luka, non-Kyrie. We don't need to, everybody knows that they can be trusted for 25 minutes in the finals. Kyrie was an option. He finished second behind Dereck Lively in the who is your favorite Maverick? But a distant second. It's this next season, it's Dereck Lively season. It's his time.
It is. And I agree with you. He's totally earned it. And I think that one of the things that Mavs fans see, especially since this is a survey of Mavs fans, is for years and years after Tyson Chandler leaves, you're just looking for the guy that can catch lobs and defend the rim and can rebound. Can we just get one of those guys that can do those things? And he can do that and more. And we'll see what happens with his 3-point shot, but the ability to pass out of the short roll and all that, like you finally just got like such a perfect player for that role that you just needed so badly. And he came in and filled it, changed the defense, changed the offense in some way, because now you have a lob threat all the time and a guy that can do a little bit more off of pick and roll. Like it just is such a great fit, and it allows the Dallas Mavericks to do Dallas Mavericks things all the time.
They just needed a Mike Toby type.
Is he still available? Don't the Mavs have they have a training camp spot too now, right? They have a 2-way spot available?
You were just tweeting about this. You were more locked in. You're doing a daily podcast. You're more locked into this than me right now.
In the 2-way spot. Well, by the time this airs, it may be different. But we have Kessler Edwards and you have Brandon Williams, and they waived Alex Fudge today. So now you have a 2-way spot open.
There you go.
Mike Toby.
Mike Toby time.
He didn't even play for Slovenia last year.
He's doing his best.
One of the things the Lively becoming the third best player and definitely most important player is a huge development. One of the things from the finals question, Maxi from year to year. In 2023, about who can play 25 minutes in a finals in a playoff game, postseason game, he got 65% confidence. That's a pretty big percentage of Mavs fans that are confident in Maxi. That went down to 10% or about 11% this past year. What have we seen from Maxi and the drop off of Maxi?
Some of it is the question itself. Going from playoff to, it seems like everybody has forgotten how important Maxi was, how good and effective he was in the first round. And then he came back and he was, coming back from an injury and, was like bionic, had a bionic shoulder brace wrap sort of thing. I don't think that he was the best version of himself, but we've also seen the decline and we've seen that he is not as effective of a player that it's just hard to expect that out of him. At all times. We understand that he's not going to be available, 82 games a year, that, sometimes he's going to get injured in the middle of a postseason run, and that's going to really affect them. And so I just think that, I understand the confidence falling off, and quite frankly, 20 minutes in a finals is a really high bar. I think the overall confidence level in Maxi, I'm higher on him. I still think he's going to play a big role next season, a big-ish role. Like he is going to be in the rotation. It may be a situation where it's best that he's not in it all the time, that he's on more of a resting plan, something like that. I have no clue what that's going to look like, or even if it's going to be, maybe he's just injured off and on often enough that, he's just going to miss games due to injury, not due to any sort of like plan you have for him. But I still think he can be a good, effective player. I think that he is still someone that the coaching staff believes in and trusts, but believing and trusting someone in the regular season or in an opening round or two is much different than trusting them for 20 minutes in an NBA finals. And it just may be hard to really look at Maxi and everything that his career has been through over the past couple of years, how he's looked on the court, and really expect for that to still be the case in a year from now.
Yeah.
One more year, after, another set of injuries, after another, season of mileage on his bodies. I do think that's a big ask for him, even if that doesn't necessarily mean I'm not confident in him as a useful rotation player next season in the finals, in the regular season.
Yeah, I think it's the two things that you mentioned are the bar of this question is very high. Like to be able to play 20 effective minutes in a finals game. He didn't do that this past year, but like you said, he was coming back from injury. And then just the injuries itself, they've just been piling up, and he hit a lot last year. He was super effective, not just in the first round, but the end of last season. He was a big part of that huge run. And I think this year they won't have to rely on him as much. You have PJ that can play that 4. I hope that we see a little bit more of him as small ball 5. Najee Marshall can play that 4 a little bit. Maybe Omax steps up and plays a little more there. And then you also have 48 minutes of Lively and Gafford at center that you don't have to rely on Maxi as a 5 at any point really in this. And so I think that it'll be better set up for him this season to not be relied on as much to be able to play more, but then he's not playing more. So then I get why people are not as confident in this question, but there has been a drop of confidence in Maxi. And there are some Mavs fans that would DM me or comment on YouTube or whatever and be like, all right, we got rid of Tim Hardaway. Now it's time to get rid of Maxi. He's the one ruining this team. And you're like, okay, I'm not going to go that far with you. Like I'm not walking down that road with you, but yeah, there has been a drop of confidence in Maxi, and it's interesting to see where Mavs fans are with it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Still a good player, but I'll put it this way: like the Mavericks, I think the Mavericks understand that planning for life without planning for a future without Maxi, that is the time, and
yeah,
being able to get good contributions out of him, even as a regular season backup, off the bench rotation guy. There's probably no more than a couple more years of really reliably trusting him as a player to be able to do that. And it may be something that comes even quicker because that's just what happens when you get to be this age and you're this type of player.
He's just so old and decrepit.
It's like a year older than us.
I was gonna say, no, Max. I'm a week older than Maxi. We have almost the same birthday.
Man, it's over for you too, Nick. You got one good year left in you.
Washed as hell.
Well, I mean, all the injuries, the vocal cords, and that one time where you're doing too many hand motions on the podcast, and strained a muscle, and so man, it adds up quick. You had a great career though.
I did. I did my best. Tim Cato is not washed though, and you'll be in the Mavs Twitter tournament.
Supposedly, theoretically, I'm told I will be. Yeah, no, me and Slightly Biased are supposed to be on a team. So
I love that. I was going to be with you, but I'm going to be out of town for the Mavs Twitter tournament.
Damn.
But there you go. Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs. Go listen to Tim, or go hang out with Tim Cato at The Athletic, and go follow him on Twitter. All that, guys. Thanks for listening to Locked On Mavs. One more thing.
Peace out.
Boom.